What's good, guys? Now, in one of the previous videos, I gave you an overview of Bravo Studio, and we even went out and built a simple app. Now, it's important to understand that this tool works completely differently than many of the other no-code tools. There's a different process, there's a different workflow, there's just a different way of doing things. And so I do understand that some people weren't clear on how exactly you can use this tool to build the app that you want. But it's also crucial to understand that this is a very, very powerful tool, and if you know how to use it correctly, you will be able to build beautiful, amazing, and very, very useful apps. And so in today's video, we're gonna go out and we're gonna build an app from beginning to end, a useful app that's gonna do something nice for the user, and you're gonna learn exactly how to use this tool to build the apps that you want. And at the end of the video, you will see why I really, really like this tool, and you will understand how to build beautiful apps without truly writing a single line of code. Now, before we continue further, I just want to give you a diagram. This is a very, very simple diagram, and this is going to give you a base, kind of a background on how this tool works and how to get it to do what you want. There's really two stages of getting this tool to work. Is that the first stage, you have to design the app, okay? And so you have to go out and you either have to design this app yourself, or you can use some of the built-in templates. And there's lots and lots of templates. So you don't even have to design the app if you don't want to. I'll show you exactly what I mean. And the second thing that you have to do is you have to import these templates, whether you design them yourself or you are using existing templates. You have to import into this tool and load it up with data. That's all you have to do. It's very, very simple. And I promise you, at the end of the video, you will be able to build pretty much any kind of app that you want with lots of templates that you can use, or even go out and design your own templates, all right? And so step one is to import. Then you have to adapt the templates for the tool, connect it with data, and publish. It's very, very easy. And granted, a lot of these diagrams, they make it a lot more complex and a lot more harder than it really needs to be. It's truly a very, very easy tool. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to start from the UI, okay? And for that, we're gonna go to a site called Figma, okay? Figma is an awesome site. Not only can you easily code your own UI, you can also find other designs, other UIs that you can essentially use in your own projects. Now, I'm speaking as a non-designer, okay? I hate design, I'm not good at design, but I actually found Figma very, very easy to use. And it took me like a couple of hours to get up to speed and start using this tool. Okay, so here I am, I'm logged in, and what I'm seeing is a bunch of files, a bunch of things that I was looking at before, okay? But one of the most powerful things when it comes to Figma is their community. So if you click up here and you click on community, you will see lots and lots of designs, mock-ups that other people have built that you can use as well in your own projects. And so, for instance, I can click on mobile and I can see icons, I can see UI elements, and I can see full-fledged designs that consist of many, many screens. So if you take a look at this, there's a game store app UI kit, 150 screens, there's a groceries, food. If you click on that, you can kind of have a better idea of how it looks. They created a bunch of screens that you can adapt to your app. And as someone who is a non-designer, a non-UI expert, just looking at these screens and just realizing that I can import these screens into my app and actually build an app that looks something like this makes me very, very excited, because I can never build designs like this. And if you're someone like me, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so this right here, just the ability of being able to get any design that you want and create an app around it, just import this design and build an app that uses that design, is one of the biggest advantages of using a tool like Bravo Studio, okay? And so let's say we're browsing these designs and we have an idea. Let's say we want to build a store, an e-commerce store that's going to be selling various things. And so we're browsing various designs, and I actually found a design that I really like. It's a simple design that's going to be perfect for building an e-commerce store. So here we have a sample design that was built by somebody else that we can use, we can modify, and we can build an app using this design. And this here is a watch store app. It has 2 screens, so it's perfect. It's very, very simple to get started. It doesn't have 200 screens. This is very, very easy to get started so that you can build a quick app using this design, have a beautiful app that kind of does what you want. And then later on, as you're building confidence, you're becoming more comfortable with this tool, you can go out and find a more complex design. And so if you take a look on the left-hand side, we have different pages. Because in Figma, it's not just about designs. You can actually segment different parts of your UI, different elements using pages. So we have the cover, we have the assets, we have visual, we have note, and we have a support, right? So this is like just information from the designer, if you want to support them, things like that. So if you go into visual, you will see the 2 pages, the 2 screens that are going to be perfect for us to use inside our app. Now, if you take a look at the top, you see this is view only, and that is because we're viewing the file that's available in the community. What we need to do is we need to click here, and we need to say duplicate to your drafts, okay? And so it tells us file duplicated to your drafts. We can open it up. And right now, this file is actually on our workspace. This is a file we can edit. We can do pretty much whatever we want with this file. Well, now that you have the file here, you have to get it ready to be imported into Bravo Studio. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to remove all the stuff that we don't need. So we have a cover here. I'm going to delete this page right here. We don't need this page. We have assets here. I'm going to leave the assets. We have visual, we need this, so we're going to keep this. We have a note, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to delete this other page that we don't really need. Because the thing is, everything that you see is going to be imported into Bravo Studio. So you want to make sure that we are importing just the things that we need, okay? And so we're going to be focusing on these 2 pages, okay? The first thing to notice here is that we're seeing these bars here, okay? And you can remove them. You can enable them, and you can do that by clicking on the name of the page and scrolling down, and you see a layout grid. So I can click minus and remove it immediately, okay? Now, I just want to point out that I am not a designer, and this took me like 1 to 2 hours to kind of get up to speed on Figma. So if you're not a designer, do not worry. You're probably a better designer than me. Now, at this point, we see a design. We have 2 pages. We can kind of zoom out, zoom in. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to adapt this design so that it's going to be suitable for Bravo Studio. And there are 2 things that you need to do, okay? So if we look at these 2 pages, and as you can see, so for instance, we have home, we have detailed product. If we open up home, we have a lot of things happening here, and these are the elements here. And the way you need to fix this page up, okay, you need to restructure it, is that what you need to do, guys, is you need to break up the elements here into containers, okay? And what is a container? A container is this right here. That's all it is. It's a frame, okay? Very, very simple. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that on the page level, you just have containers, okay? And inside containers, you have all of these other elements. Now, if I look on this page, I am seeing a couple of containers. I'm seeing a couple of things that are happening right now. We have our data container here, okay? This is going to be filled in with our stuff from the database. This is going to be filled in with our products. And we also have the header. So all of these things here, that is part of the header, and this is part of data. This thing on top, we don't need, right? Because we're going to be running it on the phone, and the phone is going to have the status stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete this. So, it's not there. So we are not bothered by it. And the next thing we need to do is we need to group these elements into their own containers, okay? And that way, when we import it into Bravo Studio, it's going to understand what to do with these elements. It's very, very simple. And so the first thing that you want to do when it comes to this data is the same thing we do in FlutterFlow and pretty much any other tool, is that we want just one element here. We don't want all of it because it's going to get these elements from a database, right? Or some kind of a data storage. So I'm going to remove the other watches. I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to hit delete. And now I have one watch, okay, inside this product card, okay? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say frame selection. I want page to have various frames, okay? And then I'm going to come here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say ungroup, okay? Because I don't want all of these levels, okay? And then I'm going to say ungroup this Apple Watch. I'm going to do ungroup. And now I just have a bunch of containers there, okay? I'm going to do ungroup here. I'm going to do ungroup here. I just want things simple, guys, okay? I'm going to do ungroup here. And you will see what I mean. I'm going to do ungroup. And now what I have is just these elements. I have this watch. I'm going to drag to the top. I have the name, which is Apple Watch, the brand. I have the model, and I have the price. And all of these are here, okay? Now, I want to rename this frame to data. This is our data container, okay? And this is going to be filled in with the stuff we get from the database. Next, I'm going to do the same thing for this other thing on top. So I'm going to remove this right here because I don't need it. And all I want is this thing right here to be part of another container called header. Okay, so I'm going to take headline. I'm going to say right click. I'm going to do ungroup it. Menu and search. I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to ungroup this right here. I'm going to ungroup it right here. I'm just going to ungroup all the groups. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these 4 things. I'm going to right click. And I'm going to say frame selection. Now we have one other frame. I'm going to call this header. And so now you see we have the home page and we have the header and we have data here, okay? Now there's a couple of more things that you need to do, guys, okay? You want to make sure that this header right here, it's expanded all the way through because as you can see, there's some spacing here, okay? You don't want any spacing, okay? Because when you actually load this app inside Bravo Studio, it's not going to count the spacing and it's going to align it all the way to the end. So what we want is we want to align it all the way to the end like this. And we want to align this like this, okay? We don't want any padding. We're going to do the same thing here. And we want to align it up close. And it's really easy to do with Figma. You can even zoom in. So that's all I'm doing. I'm basically removing the padding. And when I did that, I see that now we have to kind of fix it up a little bit, maybe put it in here, put this thing right here. Very easy. It's going to take you like maybe a couple of minutes to kind of do it. I'm going to align this here. I'm going to align this right here. And now inside that container, this header, you see the header is now perfectly flushed with the page. I want to go to this find your suitable watch and I want to maybe align it a little bit more. Now there's going to be padding. Okay, it's because this text is inside a container that takes up the whole width of the screen. That's kind of how you want to do it. So let's take a look at the other elements. We have this thing right here. We have the search. I'm going to drag it up. And so now if you click on the name of the page here and you scroll down, you see that it's all flushed. You see this? It says 0. It says 0. That means there's no overlap. It's perfectly aligned. Okay, that's kind of how you want. Now, when it comes to the items that we're going to be showing, if you have it all the way like this, you're going to have a list. Okay, you're going to have a list. You're going to have item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. If you have it less than 50% of the width, it's going to be a grid. That's a way, by doing that, you're letting Bravo Studio know that you want it to be a grid. And so it's kind of hard to see where 50% is. So what we want to do is we want to turn on this layout grid. So I'm going to click on the page right here. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say mobile grid. And now if I click here, I know where 50% is. So it's somewhere here. This is less than 50%. So that is perfect for me. Because that way, if I do it here, I'm going to have another row right here and there's going to be some padding here, okay? And so by doing it less than 50%, so you see that's more than 50%, this is definitely less. Like 50% is somewhere here. This is less than 50%, okay? By doing that, we are telling Bravo Studio that we want a grid layout. Once I kind of fix this page up by grouping it in its proper containers, just fixing it up, making it look nicer and kind of more organized, the next thing that I need to do is I need to assign tags. Okay, so I need to let Bravo Studio know that this is data and this is header, meaning like this is going to be scrollable and this is going to be filled with data. This is not going to be scrollable, okay? And so the way you do it is there are a couple of ways of doing it. You can do it manually. So I can click on this data and I can do a tag. And a tag is basically text inside square brackets. So I have an open square bracket. I can have my tag, close square bracket. I can do that. Another way of doing it is by installing a plugin. Figma has plugins. So if I click on resources here and I go to plugins, I can search for a plugin called Bravorizer. Okay, and I already have this plugin, so I can simply click on run, and now I'm gonna have this plugin right here, and this thing does the tagger, and it also checks the tags. Okay, now you might be asking, what are all these tags? How many tags are there, and what do these tags do? Well, you can simply Google for Bravo tags master list, and you're gonna be on the resource that has all the tags and their specifications, where you can use these tags with examples, etc., etc. So as an example, we're doing containers. If I open this up, you can see the different tags having to do with containers. So you can have a container tag, you can have a top bar, you can have a hide scroll, show scroll, you can have, a slider, etc., etc. The tags we're interested in is this container tag and this top bar tag, because that is the tags we're going to be using. And so what I can do is I can copy right here, I can go back to my Figma app right here, and I can paste it to this data. I can just put a space, and now it's a container. And now once we import this into Bravo Studio, it will know that this is going to be filled with data. Okay, and it's very simple, and it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. And you just have to understand that we have two containers, two frames essentially, and you just have to let Bravo Studio know which container is going to be doing what. Okay, another way of doing it is by clicking this container, coming in here and just searching for container. I found the container, picking this tag and saying add tag. Okay, and once I do that, it adds the tag. Now the same thing I can do for header. Header is going to be our top bar, so I can just search for bar. It says top bar, I can click on it, it's selected, and I can say add tags, and it added this container top bar. And so, yes, you can do it manually, but in my view, just getting this plugin inside Figma is a lot better. It's a lot more convenient, so I definitely recommend that. All right, so now we gave our two tags to our two containers. Okay, so we have this top bar, which is not going to be scrollable, and we have this data container, which is going to be a grid view, because we decided to have the width less than 50%, and that way it's going to be a grid view. So we are done with this page. Okay, let's move on to the second page. We're going to click here, we're going to click on the title right here, and we're going to do the same thing. So what do we have on this page? Well, we have this header here. I'm going to drag it above, and then everything else is basically data. And so what do we want to do? Well, the first thing that we want to do is we want to group all of this to be under one container. Okay, and we want this container to stretch from here, just below this header, all the way to the bottom. Okay, because all of this is going to be dynamic data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have that there, and I'm going to come to this frame, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say frame selection, and I'm going to say ungroup selection, and now we just have this frame. And what I want is I want this frame to be aligned side to side, right? We do not want to leave any padding. And so what I can do is I can basically click on this frame, expand it all the way like this, and then I can select these elements and put them wherever I want. So I don't want this to be at the edge. I want it to be something like this maybe. Okay, so something like this. And look at those guys that make it, they make aligning these elements a lot nicer. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to expand this all the way to the top. Okay, and we don't want this to the top. And so we want to select it. We want to drag it a little bit lower. We want to drag this. We want to select it here, drag it right. Perfect. Let's perfect. Okay, and so this is flush with the page, with the sides of the page, top, left, and right. And now we need to do the same thing for all the other elements. So as you can see, this is flush. This is perfect. This one isn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand it all the way. Perfect. Okay, that looks perfect to me. We can even align it centered. And that way, this thing is always going to be centered no matter what happens with the UI. Okay, so now it's aligned centered, and it's aligned to the top. And so the next thing we want to do is we also want to align it. We want to extend it to the top here so that it's flush. And then take a look at this. We want this to be aligned as well. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to align it perfectly. And so now we have three containers. We have this top bar container. We have this image container. and we have this container here. So if you click on this page, you see there's 0, 0, and that's it. It's all perfectly aligned. And so we have 3 containers, and that is fine. That is perfectly fine, except we'll need to do 2 requests. A much better strategy would be to get this watch inside the detail, right? And that way we'll have 2 containers. And so once I do that, what I want to do is I want to expand this, right? Because this is too small, we can't see the watch. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it all the way up right here, and then I'm going to move everything else down, okay? So we're going to move everything else down, something like this, okay? And now I'm going to move the watch back, align it perfectly. And now we only have 2 containers. So we have this and details. I'm going to rename this to header, and I'm going to do the same thing later. We're going to tag it in a second. So I have details right here. I have my watch. Let's take a look if they're all flush. And it's only important that the top level containers are flush. You don't need to worry about the watches and all the other things. They're not going to be flush anyway. And that is kind of what we have. Okay, so let's go ahead and tag it. Let's go and find my Bravorizer. I'm going to run it. We're going to tag the header. I'm going to say top bar. This is top bar. I'm going to add this text, and it had that tag there. Details is a container. Choose it, add tag, and we have a container. Okay, now it's going to understand where to get the data and where to change the elements. Now, the next thing that you can do, and this is an optional step, but I like to do this, is I like to go to my data containers here, and I want to rename this thing. So it says Apple Watch, and what I want to do is this is actually a name, right, or a brand. Okay, so I'm just going to say brand. And what I like to do is I like to put an asterisk beforehand. And what this means is that this is going to be filled in with data. And that way, when I'm back in Bravo Studio, I'm going to get the data and I'm going to put in there. I'm going to say brand, I'm going to say model, and I'm going to say price. Okay? This does not change. If I have a different name here, that doesn't mean this is going to change because this is completely different. This is just text here. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to have this price to double. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a $sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. I'm going to remove this. I'm just going to put a $sign. I'm going to remove a $sign. And that way they're all going to have, always going to have a $sign. Perfect. Okay. And so I'm going to have this as the $sign right here. This is not going to change, but this is going to change. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So we're going to go to our details container. This is series 7. Okay. This is an image. So I'm just going to say image. I'm going to go to the headline. We're going to go to the headline, and this is the price. And actually, I'm going to ungroup this because we don't need to group it. I'm going to delete that, and we're going to ungroup that as well. Just keep it simple. Image, the name of the watch, price, and let's align it perfectly, something like this. And I'm going to say this is going to be the brand. And we have colors. We're not going to mess with colors. This is for next time maybe. And now we have this group of details. So I'm just going to drag that to the top, and I'm going to remove this. Okay, just to have something like this. And I'm going to have it like this. Perfect. And I'm going to say this is description. And then we have a button. So let's take a look at button. It says add to cart. That's fine. Okay, and then we have a button. And now we will know in Bravo Studio which of these elements we need to do. And so now we're kind of done with changing the templates here. So if you come in here and I want to have that layout grid, I'm going to say here, mobile grid. And so yes, I'm spending a little bit of time kind of designing that. But remember guys, design is very, very important. Tell me the truth. You gotta admit, this looks really nice. This looks a lot better than many of the no-code builders that have a lot of these wacky designs, very computer science kind of designs. This looks amazing design, right? So in my view, just kind of tinkering with the design is very, very important. That's what the user is going to see, and that's how the user is going to judge the app, right? That's how they're going to look at the app. And so at this point, we are done with our designs. And so I can come in here, I can click here, I can rename this a template. So let's say I want to do it watch store. Okay, we have watch store, and then I'm going to hit share, and I'm going to say copy link. And now with this link, we can go back to Bravo Studio and we can get it to work with our app. So I'm going to go to Bravo Studio. I'm going to say login. And once I'm in Bravo Studio, it's very, very simple here. It's very, very simple. I have my apps. I have my API collections. and I have sample apps. Sample apps are great to kind of play around and learn how Bravo Studio works. But we're going to go into apps and we're going to say create new app. And what it wants that Figma file. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to say connect our Figma file. So it's pulling in the Figma file into Bravo Studio. And let's see what it finds over there. Okay, and it pulled everything in. And now we have a lot of screens. Okay, so it pulled a ton of screens. These are the 2 screens that we want. We don't really want these screens. So what do we need to do? We need to go back into Figma. We need to come in here. We're going to go into asset. And what we need to do is we need to specify that these pages here should not be imported into Bravo Studio. And the way we do that is by selecting each of these pages and including a skip tag. That's all you need to do. The word skip inside square brackets. So I'm going to say skip. I'm going to say skip. That's all I need to do. And once I did that, I'm going to go back into my app and I'm going to hit this update to your latest Figma design. I'm going to say update, and it's going to re-pull that Figma file, and hopefully it's not going to include those pages. And as you can see, we only have the 2 pages that we want. Okay? So now we can click and enter the data binding mode. So now we can click here and look at this. It read that Figma file and it's showing us we have the header and we have data. So I can click on header and I can see all the elements. I can click on data and I can see all the elements. So if you had a lot of groups in there, you're going to see a lot of grouping here. You don't want that, right? You want to keep it as simple as possible, okay? So that is kind of what we have. The problem is we do not have a database yet, okay? We need to get data in there one way or another. So what we need to do is we need to come into API collections and we need to create a new collection, okay? So once we do that, we have a wizard here, okay? So we can start from scratch. We can use an Airtable wizard. We can use a Xano wizard, Open API import, Postman import, and Swagger import, okay? And so what is this? Well, all of this means that your data needs to be somewhere externally. It needs to be on an external API or on an Airtable or something else. It needs to be an API, okay? There is no internal way of storing data in Bravo Studio. It's all APIs. So you can start from scratch. If you're using like a custom API, you're doing some kind of a fake API, a mock API, which is something that I talked about in many of the previous videos. But the easiest way to get started is by using Airtable. Okay, you can think of Airtable as kind of like an internal / external data source for Bravo Studio. Okay, so we're gonna say we're gonna be using an Airtable. Okay, we're gonna say Airtable, and it wants us to enter our base share link. Okay, enter URL. So I'm gonna go into Airtable and I'm gonna configure it, and we're gonna paste the URLs. And so here I'm in Airtable. This is a free account. You don't need to pay for anything. I created a new base called watches. I have a sheet called watches, and I actually inputted the data. So we have like 5 watches. We have 2 Apple watches, 2 Galaxy watches, and a Fitbit for good measure. And so we have a name, model, image, description, and a price. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to click on share. We need to say share publicly, and we need to click on this link. Now it's copied to my clipboard. I can go back and I can paste it in here. I can say continue. The next thing it's asking for is an API key. How do we get an API key? Well, we're going to go back into Airtable, click on account here, click on account, and click on this and copy this API key. Do not share that API key, because if somebody has it, they'll be able to access your account very, very easily. So once we copy that, we're going to go back into Bravo Studio, paste it in here and say complete. And it's pulling in all the data. We're going to say continue. And now we are at a screen where we see the request. So not only did it connect to our data very, very quickly and easily, but it also went ahead and created 2 requests for us. That's really, really cool, because if it didn't do that, we will have to learn and study Airtable's API and kind of understand how it works and all that. And I've done it before on many of the other videos where the tool that we're working with doesn't really have a good Airtable integration. But Bravo Studio has an excellent Airtable integration. So we have a list request and we have a detail request, which makes getting our data very easily. In fact, we don't have to do anything else at this point, right? This is enough. So if we come to list, we have this request right here. We also have the authorization. This is our key. Do not share this key with anyone. And now if we hit send, we should get the list of 5 watches, right? 5 watches. Yeah, 5 watches, okay? And so this is our data, right? This is the fields that we're getting. We're getting everything, and we can also pick a specific record. We have records going from 0 to 4, which is 5, which means 5 records. And this is the kind of data we are getting, right? And for the most part, you can leave it on default because it's a lot better to get more fields that you need than to get less fields that you need and have fields that are missing and that you can't use. The next thing you want to do is you want to go to selected data and you want to take a look if everything that you need for the app is there. Now you want to pay close attention to this ID field, right? You want it to be lowercase ID because this ID is how you will be able to link records from the list view to the detail view, okay? It's very, very elegant how it works in Bravo Studio in a way because you don't need to pass the parameters like you have to do in a lot of these other tools, okay? So we have this ID and everything is fine. Everything is perfect. We're going to come to detail. We're going to say send. And now we're getting data. And now you want to take a close look at this URL right here, right? It says ID. And this ID is going to be filled in by whichever ID, by whichever record the person clicks on. Okay, so if they click on a specific record, maybe the 3rd watch or the 5th watch, it's going to have a specific ID. And this is going to be pre-filled by that ID. Okay, and so if we come into test values, right now we are testing it. So we're sending like, I think this is like the 1st record or something, or one of the records there. So we're using a sample record. But when we run the app, it's going to pass in the record from the list view, okay? Now, what you want to do, guys, is you want to go to selected data and you want to make sure there's an ID in there somewhere. So right now, there's no ID. That's bad. We need the ID. We're going to go back to receive data and we're going to select ID. Now, if we go into selected data, scroll down, we should have this ID. And it should be lowercase ID. It should be the same as you have it here, okay? For the most part, it is there, but you want to double check because otherwise the app is not going to work, okay? So this is fine. This works. You can add more requests if you want, and we'll probably do that sometime later, but for now, this is perfect. And so now we can go back to our apps, choose this app right here, and now we can start filling it with data. So I'm going to come here. We don't need header. Header is going to be static. We're going to go into data, and what do I want to do with data? I'm going to select collection watches here, and I'm going to select the request. In this case, we want to get the list. I'm going to say watches list. And for data, what do I want? Well, I want records. We want to pull all the records. This is what's going to be populated on this grid view here. And next, we go through each of the elements. So price, let's say the price, you can just type it in actually, price. This is not going to be changed, okay? We can see. And this way, it's easy to see which elements need data, right? Because of the asterisk that I placed when I was designing that. We're going to go into model. We're going to say model. For brand, I believe I'm storing it as name, not as brand, which is fine. And that's all we need to do. Next, we have series 7. This is an image. We need to replace it, okay? So I'm going to come here and I'm going to type image. Okay, now we have a lot of options. And if you're using Airtable, a nice shortcut is to type URL because you want to specify URL. And you want to specify like a full URL because it's going to have the highest quality. And so now we have price, we have model, we have brand, and we have the image. Okay, that's pretty much all you need because these things, these are like groups and you can't really work with them, right? You can't really replace them with anything else. They're groupings of other elements. So this is done. This is now done. Let's go back to the app and let's pick the second screen. Let's bind it. We also have header, which is this thing on top, and we have details. So I'm going to choose details. I'm going to say list collections. I'm going to say watches. I want detail. And here we're not going to fill it up with anything, okay? We're just going to go to description. We're going to search for description. We are going to go to price. I'm going to search for price. We're going to go to brand, and I don't have brand, I have name and image. And I'm going to type URL, and I'm going to say full URL. And you want to pay attention that you see that the elements are bound. Sometimes you might do something, but maybe you didn't pick something or you forgot to do something. You're not going to have anything bound. You want the elements to be bound. And then another nice thing about Bravo Studio is it saves automatically, okay? This is not the case with FlutterFlow. This is not the case with a lot of tools, so it saves automatically, as you can see right here, saves automatically. So we have 4 elements bound, and if we go back to that other screen, we have 1 element bound, which is that list, right? This data list, right? This is kind of what's bound, okay? 1 element bound. And so we are ready to test out the app. We are ready to see what the app looks like and whether it's working or not. And so the way you want to do is you want to hit this eye icon here. And first you need to download an app called Bravo Vision. And once you download the app and you log into your Bravo Studio account, you can essentially test the app right on your phone. So you're not testing it on a computer, on your laptop or desktop. You're testing it right off your mobile device, which is amazing because you can see right away what the app looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and get my phone and we're going to test this out. All right, so I loaded up the app here. This is the app in question. If we click on this app, it's going to load it up. And this is what the app looks like. Okay, so as you can see, we have the header, we have the text, and we have our grid. We have the 5 watches from our Airtable. And the only thing we need to do on this page is kind of move this a little bit lower, okay, which is something I'm going to do in a second. Now, if we click on it, nothing happens. Nothing happens. That is because we haven't created the connection from the list view to the detail view or from the detail view back to the list view. So let's go ahead and try that right now. Now, all the connections that you're going to be doing between screens are going to be done in Figma. So the way you do it is you essentially pick any of the screens here. So let's say I pick home here. I'm going to go into prototype and I'm going to say flow starting point. I'm going to hit the plus sign here. And now this is where the app is going to start. It's going to start on this screen. The next thing that I want to do is I want to come here and I want to pick the element from where I want something to happen. So in this case, this is going to be our data container, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the mouse over to one of the sites here, click on the plus icon, drag it to the next page, and let go. And I'm going to see interaction details. And so it says on tap, you have other options there. We have navigate to, and we have detailed product. It basically filled it in perfectly. The other thing I want to do is I want to have a move in or some kind of an animation. So I'm going to have a slide out. Okay. We're going to have a slide out, maybe something like this. Let's try that. Let's see how that looks. We're going to go back to Bravo Studio and I'm going to hit update to your Figma design. Now, when I do that, it will automatically reload the app. And so here I am looking at the old app here. I'm going to hit update. It's going to pull in our new Figma file. And this thing is automatically going to reload, which is awesome. And it's lightning fast, very, very quickly. We're seeing the app, and now we should be able to click on something. So I'm going to click on this watch, and it redirects it. And now we're seeing this watch. And as you can see, we're seeing that same watch. We have the Apple Watch price. We just need to fix the price. It's not fully visible. It's a little cut off. Unfortunately, we can't yet click on the back button because we haven't created that connection yet. So I'm going to go back inside the app, and I'm going to create that second connection. Here I am inside Figma. I'm going to find this back button right here. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag an arrow back to this page. And now we have navigate to home, and I'm going to say slide in. Slide in. Okay, that's exactly how I want. We are going to go back to Bravo Studio. I'm going to open that app again. I'm going to do update to your latest Figma design right here. And once it finishes, it's going to automatically reload the app. So here's the new app. I'm going to click on, let's say, this Galaxy Model 5. Okay, now we're seeing it. I'm going to click on the back button, and then we're back to the main screen. And the animation works perfectly. Now, there are a couple of things I need to fix. One thing I need to do is fix this top header on the list page here. And the other thing I want to fix is the price, right? It's a little cut off over there. Okay, so let's do that right now. Let's go back into Figma. Let's drag this thing right here. So we have this header, we have this search, and we have these 2 icons, okay? So we have all of these things, right? So I want to select that, and I'm going to drag it a little bit lower. So maybe something like this, and maybe I'll also drag this as well. Let's choose that. Maybe drag this lower, and I'm going to drag that there. So it's kind of on the same level. And we're going to select these 2 icons and drag them a little bit below. So something like this. too much. Okay, maybe something like this. That looks better. Let's see how this looks. Looks good. And let's fix that price over there. And the reason that price is not being displayed is because this is using a font that I don't have, right? So the design was built using a font which I don't have. That's why it's not exactly perfect. And so what we want to do here is we want to see, so we have the brand and we have the price. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the price a little bit downward, something like this. And so now it should have enough space. So that way it's not going to be cut off. And let's center this correctly. Okay, that looks perfect. Yeah, something like this. And now there's enough space, so hopefully it's not going to be cut off this time. All right, let's go back into Bravo Studio. Let's load up the app. All right, let's go ahead and update to our latest Figma design here. And as I'm doing it, my app is automatically going to be reloaded. All right, this is the new app. As you can see, the top bar is a lot better now. It's not kind of squished into the top of the phone. And if we click on, let's say, Apple Watch Series 5 right here, now the price is a lot better. Now it's not cut off anymore. And it looks like it's nice. It just needs a little more spacing at the bottom, which is very, very easy to fix. But overall, now we have an app that works. Now, as of now, we built a simple app that just works. You have a list view, you have a detail view, you have navigation from here to here, you have navigation from here to here. And what I want to do now is I want to show you one advanced feature that you can do with Bravo Studio that's a little complicated to do with other apps. And this is just scraping the top of the surface, right? This is just the beginning. And so what I want to do, guys, is remember, this is a request and this is a request. So when we click here, there's a small delay while it downloads the details for this. And so what I want to do is I want to show another screen that's going to display a little animation while the user waits for the details for that specific product to be downloaded. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we are going to copy one of these pages here. Now, this page is going to be different. We're going to rename it to wait. And we're going to remove everything on this page except the container. Okay, so we're going to remove all the items. I'm just going to delete it. And regardless what kind of page you build, what it's going to do or its purpose, you always need to have containers, right? That page will always need to have containers. Okay, so I'm going to remove this container, but the page needs to have at least one container. So in this case, we have a container. Okay, so we're going to double click on the container. We're going to make the container full width. Okay, it's just going to be container. That's going to be the size of the page. That's it. And inside the container, we're going to put an animation. Okay, so in order to put an animation, we need to have a rectangle. So I'm going to drag and drop this rectangle. I'm going to create this rectangle in the middle of the page. And what I want this rectangle to be centered, but not only that, I want it to be aligned to the center, right? I don't want it to be aligned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align it center. I'm going to say left and right and top. So that looks great. Okay, it's pretty much centered. And the next thing we want to do is we want to select this page, go to our plugins, choose Bravorizer, go to run. And what you want to search for is loading, right? Because it's a state. We're loading a page. And once you do that, you have states, pages, components loading. We're going to choose that. And we're going to select custom loading page. We're going to select that and we're going to say add tags. And you want to add that at the top level because the entire page, that's what essentially it's going to do. Once we do that, the next thing we need is an animation inside this rectangle, okay? And so what we can do, guys, is you can select this rectangle, this layer here, go back to Bravorizer, hit run, and you can search for Lottie. Lottie is a type of an animation. There is a website where you can pick lots of different animations, which we're going to do in a second. And so if you go into documentations, you can see a Lottie file is an animation. Using this tag, you can insert a Lottie animation that will replace the content of the rectangle shape where you add the tag. Supports URLs ending in JSON. And so we're going to add this text here. And what it needs is a URL to the animation. Okay. So we're going to go into Lottie file. And once you come in here, you can see all the little animations that you can use on the page while the user waits, that delay page. Now, you can pick the kind of animation you want. How about something like this? So we can click on it right here. And what you want to do is you want to copy this URL. We're going to copy that. go back to the app and replace the URL with the URL we just copied, okay? And so now we have a screen that should show up while the user clicks on this button and waits for this page to load. So let's see if it works. Let's see if we're actually doing it correctly. I'm gonna go back into Bravo Studio. I'm gonna load up the app, and I'm gonna refresh the app to update from the new Figma design. So now I refresh the app, and we see the loading screen here that's gonna have the animation. And now if we click on any of these items here, we have a nice animation. You saw that? Let's go back. How about this one? Perfect. Look at that. And I can change it to any other animation that I want. Let's try another animation real quick. Let's try something different. How about this guy right here? We can click on that, copy this animation, go back to our Figma, paste that URL right here. Okay, go back to the app, reload. Our app is automatically reloaded right here. And let's try it out. How about this one? And look at that. Beautiful. Now, how cool is that? And now we have a quick animations. And so you can do these kinds of state transitions all throughout the app. Right now we have kind of a general animation, but you can have specific animations when it comes to specific parts of your app. And there's lots and lots of other things that you can do. But hopefully this tutorial where we found a template, we adapted it for Bravo Studio, and we actually built what I think is a very beautiful app, a very, very nice looking app, kind of gets you interested, gets you excited about designing with Figma, about building beautiful UIs and creating apps from them using Bravo Studio and their robust data adapters, data handling capabilities. And so in future videos, I'm going to be showing you more and more capabilities, more and more features of Bravo Studio. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or concerns, or you want me to talk about a specific topic. Also, let me know what you think about this tool. I think this is a highly underrated tool. There's a lot of amazing things that you can do. And I'm personally super excited because I can go out and I can design beautiful UI templates, or actually I can go out and find other UI templates that somebody else designed. I can maybe purchase them if they're for sale, or I can get their samples, or I can go out and build my own. There's lots and lots of possibilities. In my view, this is a really, really nice approach to building apps without code, because this is a tool which is truly 100% no code. And it's amazing that it hooks up with a tool like Figma, and that way you're getting the best of both worlds. You're using a world-class tool like Figma for design, for UI design, and kind of the community aspect of it. And you're also using a tool that works really nice with all kinds of third-party APIs, has a great Airtable support, a lot of support for third-party API packages as well. And that way you can combine the two and build a truly amazing app. So check out Bravo Studio, check out some of the sample apps they build. There's some really nice examples, some really nice things. And hopefully you will see the potential of using this tool to build certain types of apps. Now, if you're interested in doing the same thing that I did today, basically using the same Figma file that I went out and built this app with, you can get that Figma file on my Patreon page. So if you go to my Patreon page, you will have access to all the FlutterFlow apps. You're going to have access to live streams, Q&As, and you're also going to have access to this Figma file and all the future Figma files, all the future resources that you can use to import into Bravo Studio and essentially go out and build the same app and modify the app and basically start with this prototype and take it wherever you want to take it. And so if you're interested in taking your no-code knowledge a couple of notches, joining the Patreon community would be a very, very wise thing. There's lots of great people there, and you're going to have access to amazing content there as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you real soon.